It's the 16th of July, 2025. Coming up on today's Global Intelligence Agency Operations Report. The color wars continue amongst the deep state members as Marduke promised the winner big payouts and, of course, power. This is what you are seeing play out in the mainstream media. Fights between the U.S. and Putin, bombings in Syria, and more. It's gang warfare out there as the kingdom known as Earth was up for grabs as of last night, and the fight has been on ever since. People have been coming to Durango in droves over the last several days, some looking for a safe zone, while others are looking for the secrets hidden in the Rocky Mountains. And massive underground facilities remain cloaked until this weekend. Turns out some of them happen to be the global headquarters for those that operate above and control your military.
Tired before the day begins? NAD Plus levels drop 50% after 40. NAD Plus helps your cells bounce back fast. Most supplements give precursors. NAD Plus skips the breakdown, delivering direct, bioavailable power. Support your energy, metabolism, sleep, and stress levels at the cellular level. Join the NAD Plus revolution. Start your journey to a healthier you. Subscribe today.
Well, it's the 16th of July, and as always, a busy week. And, I hope one day this finally ends and we're talking about how we're moving forward in a much easier way, at least easier for me anyway. You might have noticed we ran a quick commercial. We have a lot of people that seem to want to copy our reports and post them everywhere. So we thought, well, they might as well know, if they don't already, that we actually have our own lab and we produce our own supplements. So we're not selling other people's supplements or anything like that. These are ones that we have created ourselves. In that particular commercial, it's about NAD Plus. If you've never heard about it, it's all over social media. It's real popular. And the price on ours is significantly lower than most of the other brands out there. Not because the quality is less, but, well, we just want to do things right here. And so that is our New Earth brand. So that's ours. We created it. It's our baby. We also have other things that we're coming out with in the near future. We have some sleep cream and some other things that will help you naturally. So anyway, I just thought I'd put that out. And for those of you that have ordered supplements, hopefully many of you have received yours already. We do have our Women's Daily vitamin that is a little bit back ordered. We have the back stock coming in this week finally. There's been some problems in sourcing some of the materials due to the tariffs, as you would imagine. Not everything is available here in the States, and it's kind of backlogged us a little bit with the woman's formula. But we should at least get most of the back orders out this week, and hopefully we'll be fully stocked again soon. But everything else is pretty well stocked up at this point. Anyway, back on to the report. Okay, let's talk about everything that's been going on. So over the weekend, started probably about Friday a little bit, but really heavily into Saturday, Sunday, and definitely onward through today. We have a massive influx of people here in Durango, and it's not just because it's summer and, it's kind of a tourist season around here, but we have a lot of cargo planes coming in, military cargo planes full of people. We've had a lot of jets. We've had a lot of military jets. We've had a lot of helicopters. Some don't even appear on the radar anywhere that they even exist, even though we're staring at them. So it's just been an interesting weekend here overall. Some of the people that have arrived are here because they were expecting an event here. Now, remember, a lot of the SSP or Secret Space Program folks are aware of some of the secrets, not all, but some of the secrets of the Rocky Mountains. And Durango is a very interesting place, and it's very interesting for a number of reasons. Number one, it's halfway between Dulce and Silverton. The entire area here, all the way over to Pagosa Springs and over to Ouray, is full of a lot of very ancient technologies and portals. All kinds of things exist here. The Secret Space Program operatives are very well aware of what goes on here for more than one reason, obviously. There is some information on the internet of an operative, or former operative, who is now passed away. I think his name was Phil Schneider. And he talks about the war in Dulce in detail. And a lot of the, let's call them operatives around here that live here, were actually offered retirement here. Not only because it is a protective zone, but they were also offered retirement here in order to protect what they believed was assets that lie in the region. Now, in part, that information is true. There is what we call a global super site down the street in Silverton, which means it has a tremendous amount exceeding over $100 trillion in worth of minerals, some very rare, and then of course gold and silver and germanium and a bunch of other minerals that you can't really find anywhere else. Now, because all of these minerals lie in a small, relatively small area in the region, they are, those minerals and the combination of those minerals made it an ideal location for a portal, which has been open there or had been open there for thousands or hundreds of thousands of years. So just because we call it a mining town and it looks real cute and you can ride this train there, that doesn't mean it doesn't hold its own secrets. When I first got here, I did take a trip up to Silverton. I've been up there many, many times, but I did take a trip up to Silverton, and I immediately noticed that it was the weirdest place I've ever been. As we came down over the hill from about 12,000 feet down to about 9,800 feet or so where Silverton lies, I immediately saw a portal, like a very large one. And the town itself appeared to be kind of like a neutral zone, and I knew that at the time. Little did I know what that really meant. So the center of the town was where both dark beings and light beings could and would cohabitate. There are also a lot of operatives up there. We have seen an influx of various groups over the years that would have some access to things that were there. And as you come down over the hill from Durango to Silverton, you notice on the right-hand side, the mountain is very dark, and you can literally see things crawling on the mountain, at least at that time. And on the other side of Silverton, you would notice that the mountains are very light, meaning they're almost golden, they almost glow in the sun. And part of that, the reason for that is because you had beings of both types that would cohabitate there. And you could clearly, if you have eyes to see, you could clearly see them, you know, all over. You might think if you were visiting there, you might think you're talking to a person, and it's really not a person. And you can tell the difference. And I've had conversations with some of those people and non-people up there. So interesting place. Today, it's changed a lot. I've been here for, almost 10 years now, actually. And boy, time flies when you're not having any fun. But when you when you go there, if you do have the ability to go there, you'll see one of the most interesting places in the United States, if not the entire world. And it's still very interesting. And this weekend, it got a whole lot more interesting. Well, there's been portal wars there for quite a long time. We've closed the portal. You know, someone tries to open it back up again. We've closed the portal. We've cleaned up space junk. We've cleaned up people in stasis, beings in stasis up there. We've done a lot of cleaning there. And a lot of cleaning in other areas near about the halfway point where there's a ski resort called Purgatory, or now called Durango Mountain. And there was a lot of things there as well, and various mountains in the surrounding area, all the way to you get to Uri. I've had a lot of interesting personal experiences up there, and not all the beings are bad. Like I said, you know, you've got a mixture. You had a mixture of both. Right now, there's really not a whole lot of folks there at this time, but you know, it changes. And this weekend, there was an occurrence that happened in Durango. And when I say in Durango, I mean the entire area. If you were to look at a map, you would see it would go, the diameter, the widest parts would go from Uri all the way to Pagosa Springs. So that would encompass Dulce and the entire area here. So it's about 118 to 120 mile diameter in total, maybe a little bit more than that. And oh boy, Marduke, I'll tell you, he never goes away. So this entire area became one giant cluster of portals. There's been a number of times we've seen portals in Silverton, and a number of times, you know, we've seen things in Dulce, but nothing like we saw this weekend. It caused major disturbances, at least for myself and my person, partially because, well, you know, Marduke has a way of connecting things to my person. I don't know, you know. You know, it's kind of like the deep state on a lower level. They like to use me for a lot of things, but they don't want to talk to me for, you know, or anything, or negotiate in any way, or try to make some kind of a deal. So in this particular case, it was a rather large reactor. And this is what we would call a silver portal. And by silver, we aren't referring to the metal. We are talking about something you would consider that was made of both dark and light gold. Now, we often refer to the light and essence and breath of source as gold, but in this particular case, this is what you would call false gold or false light, and false dark or false black gold, I guess you would say. And it could have caused a lot of problems. It definitely took a lot of work, even all the way up until today, to try to get that system that attempts to open here constantly cleaned up. And part of the reason why this happened at this time had nothing to do with what the deep state did, although a lot of the visitors here came here for that portal. They would like to control it. They would like to access it. They would like to, I don't know, figure that, you know, for them, you know, they think everything is for them. You know, why did this portal open here? Are they trying to protect a planet? Absolutely not. Are they trying to get access to things, whether it's AI systems or other worlds? Most definitely. You see, because there's a lot of things that we learned about the secret space program operatives over the last couple of days that, you know, some of which we knew, we just didn't realize how deeply they were involved. And I would say they have more knowledge about the crazy war on this planet than most people walking the earth. However, they do not have a lot of knowledge as it relates to the inner workings of beings that were much higher in the hierarchy of not only Earth, but the omniverse. that they actually worked with and worked for. As I've said, some of them believe that they're doing the right thing, and some of them believe that they're doing the wrong thing. But unfortunately, for both sides, they are all doing the wrong thing. Meaning, you're working for the false light and not the light in any way, shape, or form. That false light will turn on you faster than anything, and I've seen it happen if you don't know the difference. So over the weekend, things that we also discovered as a part of this, because you see, the only portal that opened on the planet that was worth everything to them was this one, but there were some other smaller ones that became evident. And a lot of this had to do with the Kingdom Wars. Now, the SSP, as far as the category of where they sit, at least in the higher ranks, you would call them the Knights of the Tables, or the Tables in some cases. You would say that they had the right on behalf of kingdom owners. They were not kingdom owners. They never have been kingdom owners. They would like to be kingdom owners, but they are not. They are just the Knights of the Tables. But given the fact that the remaining people on this planet that are the dragons, so to speak, the Order of the Dragons, they have some knowledge of black magic, probably quite a bit. They have some knowledge of what it's like to sit in a kingdom seat, but they don't have a whole lot of knowledge as to the day-to-day operations. Unfortunately, there's something wrong with these knights' head. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a program. You can't get them to understand what they're doing. Even when you explain it in detail to them, you can't get them to understand that even though something shows up, it's showing up in a simulation. It's not showing up in this plane of existence, per se. Does it cause a disturbance? Yes. Does it look like a shiny new toy for the deep state and for the knights? Yes. It looks wonderful for them, and they get so excited when they see things like this happening because they really think this is it for them, that they can now have the power. But in reality, I can tell you with every fiber of my being and with 100% honesty, I'm not running an operation against these people or anything. Quite frankly, I could care less where they go and what they do at this point. But they need to understand that these people, I know the actual kingdom people. Most all of them I've run across, and that's on the good or the better side, I should say, and the darker side, and all of the councils that have been fighting against them all these years. I know these people. Not people, I use the term people lightly. These people have never had the ability to talk to these others, not a kingdom owner directly. As a knight, you would have never really, you might have gotten orders and instructions and those types of things, but you would never have the ability to actually talk to anybody who had real power on this planet. All they know is that those beings had power and they would like to have it. They would like to own it. And they've been doing this for quite some time now. These generals or knights or whatever you want to call them, they work black magic. They try to conjure generals, that we know as demons, 72 generals of hell, and they do have some knowledge of how to use various technologies. And most of the time, they don't do it right because they don't understand the rules of the road, because even the kingdom owners had rules of the road. A lot of them would walk in, let's just say, gray areas, but there are still rules. Magic, in quantum physics, there are still rules of the road. These people refuse to believe that. They push the pedal to the metal, every single time without even looking for the gas. Meaning, how much gas do we have? How long can we sustain this speed? Will this harm the engine if we continue at, 10,000 RPMs, if that was a thing? No, they have no concept of how any of this works, predominantly because as a kingdom owner, they would have had full control over any and all access of knights. So now you have a little better understanding of the SSP and things that they look for and why they all gathered here like flies to feces, this weekend. Mainly because this would be the ultimate portal. It's a 9 portal. It goes all the way up and all the way down, and we'd have access to everything. But unfortunately for them, things they do not understand is that most of these portals, including the one that opened here, was only open in a simulation. It doesn't open into reality, which means that it would give you no access to actually control the input of a simulation anyway. And this is what is left. The other thing they don't understand that we are now gaining a better understanding of over the last several days of a lot of work is there were a lot more kingdom owners than we thought. We know about Marduke and Enki and Enlil, and we knew about, some of the lower astral folks, and everybody knows Lucifer, Lucerne, and Yaldabaoth, and game players, and all that kind of thing. Sure, but simulations also had kingdom owners, and depending on what simulation you are in on any given day, you could have several kingdom owners owning that simulation and trying to run it and have input. Most of the beings aren't there, so this stuff is kind of on autopilot. The portal here this weekend was on autopilot. It also had some interesting features to the portal that opened up here as well. One of those things was actually a management system installed by Marduke to control me. This would be an AI system that would run against me, long after his death. God bless the guy, I did tell you, or male, I should say. But what I mean by run against me, if I verbalize something, an operation, have a chat about it, whether it's in my house or in my shower or to my dog, it doesn't matter. This thing would automatically start working on counteracting moves. And this was all part of a simulation. Again, it's all part of a simulation. Some of that was actually, I would say programmed to keep the balance on this planet so that the dark would continue to exist, the kingdoms would continue to exist, the simulators would continue to exist. Therefore, there would be balance on this planet. The same thing happens to the deep state side, the knights as we know them, or the secret space program operatives, and also the Order of the Dragon side. Neither one of these groups understand balance in any way, shape, or form. Therefore, balance is not possible. So, from what I could tell, based on this simulator, I am not the only one that had it. They also have it as well, both on the knight side and on the dragon side. The simulation continues to run. I know they believe that when a fake Marduke shows up here in an AI simulation, that they're thanking their lucky stars and look, this is our partner now and we're going to work together. Nah, man, you're not going to work together with that thing. That thing is giving you just as much crap as it's giving me. You might think you're fighting me. You're not fighting me at all because I'm not fighting you, because the only way to win the game is not to play. Period. End of story. I have no question in my mind at this point that none of those people understand how to live in a balanced way. They do not want to share power. They need to have the ultimate power on this planet, which they've never, ever had before. Sure, they had more power than the average everyday human, but these are things that they never, ever, ever will understand. Now, it takes their operations, the super secret ones, doesn't matter if they're writing it down on a piece of paper, drawing it on a board, having a phone conversation, or having a conversation, underwater somewhere. It doesn't matter. All of it is recorded, and you are counteracted every single time, whether it's me doing it, because I have orders and instructions to move on from dealing with you people based on what the creator of the universe wants. As far as the rest of it goes, well, we all know, and even Marduke knew, and everybody knows that when you work with Source, yes, there are rules to the road as well, but ultimately, that is the only true power of the universe. That's it. I just work here, as it relates to Source. But I'm smart enough to understand how quantum physics works, how creation works, and how, well, if that bit of creation and consciousness does not want to go left, you will never go left. You will never make it left. Sometimes even in your own lives, experiences that you've had whereby you look back at times you've maybe made major moves, or you have had unfortunate circumstances, an end of a marriage or an end of a relationship that you didn't want to end, and where do you go from here, and how that makes you feel, or you change jobs or change careers later on in your life, or go back to school, and when you never planned to, and how difficult it might be to raise a family and go to school at the same time. Whatever those circumstances are in your life, no matter how good they were or how bad they were, they led you to where you are today. And if you look back at those things, you can probably say, boy, I'm glad that ended. I would have never been able to experience this or that, or, if that had not happened, whether it was positive or negative at the time when it did happen. But it's kind of the same thing, working with Source. Everything is a perfect plan. It's not my plan. It's that plan. If it were my plan, we would be done by now and we would be doing other things. But unfortunately, it's not my plan, and there's nothing I can do to force it. I mean, I'd love to. As far as this crazy space junk, many, many kingdoms later, it would be great if we could just pull the ripcord all at once. That would be awesome. But I haven't found that yet, and Source hasn't given me one. So, we keep plugging away, unfortunately. As for the deep state side, well, they can keep plugging away all they want to plug away, but until they decide that, Source, the creator of the universe, however you want to put it, is ultimately in charge, they will go around in circles for the rest of their life. At least we will be able to move forward at some point in time. Now that we don't have anyone reading basically a system specifically designed for me, boy, do I feel special, real special. And I wish I could think of a better word at this point, about 15, 16 hours into my workday today. But this makes me feel special, specifically just for me. God bless Marduke. He created a whole simulation within a simulation just for me to counteract everything I was doing, because he knew that someday Source would be here and in charge 100%. And he knew that I would help that process along with everything that I have. And he knew that if he could counteract me, at least he could delay it for a while. There are some videos out there. They're probably about 10 years old now, where there's a person, I think his name is Bill, And he does an interview, and I believe it was with Carrie Cassidy, and he did a number of other interviews, and he talked about his time with the secret space program and a project called Project Looking Glass, which I've talked about quite a bit. And he was called in because he understood what's called string theory, and he understood somewhat how time works, or artificially created time works. And he made some comments that I've also made, because I've seen this video, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago. And one of the comments he made was that no matter how they looked at it, it starts breaking in 2012. The information is not correct. No matter how they try to guide those quote unquote timelines to continue to work, they will not work. There's no way out. And they, of course, came after him for giving them information that was correct, but they still don't want to believe. Now, to this very day, there are many bills out there that work for the secret space program, or work for DARPA or other programs in other countries around these operatives, these knights, so to speak. And there have been many quantum physicists that have told them that this does not work, this will not end well. We've seen the end. You cannot fix it. You cannot unbreak it. But yet they still continue, and then they usually cause those people harm, or, ignore them anyway. They've had many, many meetings with these people, and they just don't want to listen, even to their own people. Even to their own scientists, they do not want to listen. So that being said, we're seeing what's happening with the knights and the dragons play out in mainstream media. And I'm going to explain a little bit about why I know that's happening. So kingdoms come in many colors, and each color has many kingdoms to it. These kingdoms are defined as can also be defined as, for example, the kingdom of day, the kingdom of night, the kingdom of the solstice, the kingdom of 2025, the kingdom of this timeline or that timeline, and where they overlap and cross. Well, all those kingdoms were not run by people at all. Some of them ran multiple kingdoms, and what we call simulations. Simulations can only mirror reality. They can't create in reality. They can't change reality. The only thing they can do is overlay it. So when it comes to the Knights, or the secret space program, ACIO militaries and operatives, they had the ability, and have had the ability, to granted to them, and I say this, granted to them by kingdom owners or simulation owners, to whereby they could have military bases that would come and go from the Earth sphere. Let's call it the Earth sphere, the many planes and densities of Earth. They have also been trained to operate AI systems when it suited the simulation owner. If it doesn't suit the simulation owner, you don't access it. Now, whether they want to believe me or not, they have seen that happen to them for many, many years now. They pretty much lost access to everything the same time that the master simulator owner, Marduke, he was the creator of a lot of the programs, whoever was playing that role at the time. And the master simulator owners lost a lot of access in 2007. When they lost access, so did the deep state. The deep state, I have spoken to these operatives myself, who have told me they lost access to their accounts back in March of 2007, could not access anything. They went to places like Panama trying to access those accounts, and in Switzerland trying to access those accounts. And still, to this very day, they are still in the Philippines, in China, and Indonesia, searching everywhere for assets, looking for someone that can open a vault, trying to get access to various things. And you know what? Hasn't worked out yet. And it's now 2025. So, well, they're almost 20 years into this, unfortunately, trying to get access. Marduke used me to get access for a long time. You see, because everything comes out of systems that are created in reality as it relates to incoming new energy into the realm. Now, there have been many simulator and overlays that could block the energy coming into the realm that we know as Earth, which then gets converted into money when it arrives. But new creation, new energy, new money, new assets, real assets can only come from reality. It cannot come from a simulation. And I'm saying this very slowly and carefully so you too can understand why it's so hard to get $1 to you. You see, every simulation has its own version of financial systems. True. It has overlays. True. However, even a simulation owner cannot pull from reality without authorization from reality to do so. My system exists in reality. Therefore, I can create unlimited energy and unlimited money. Now, in the simulation, digital cash, central bank digital currencies, I get 9,000 videos a day from people saying, oh my God, it's coming. It's not coming because you will disrupt the energy system. Even in simulators, simulators need energy. They need energy. Did I tell you they need energy? Even your human energy does not exist in a simulation. The only thing you can have in a simulation is debt. See, because you, as a human being, primarily exist in reality. You exist in reality. You have simulated versions of you that your energy in reality feeds. Your simulated version of yourself, your overlays, over souls, over this, do not generate any energy. How's that for interesting? If you ever were severed from yourself and from reality, therefore fully separated from source, you would not generate any energy. Therefore, you are no longer a battery. Marduke understood this. The kingdom owners understood this. Without reality, they could not have a simulation. The whole financial system of planet Earth that every one of these crazy knights and dragons and cyberlife people and everybody wants to control, they don't understand that. None of the systems that they operate access reality. The portal that opened up here this weekend does not access reality. It will not do it. It can't do it. You can go to 9,000 simulated Earths, which they do. They used to. You know, they say that there's bases on Mars and bases on Venus, and I'm sure you've seen all of this on the internet. And yeah, I'm going to say yes and no. Your particular simulation that you are operating in on any given moment in time probably has a simulation overlay on Venus that you could go back and forth to. Now, there were portals on Earth in the simulation, as there always were, where you could travel from simulation to simulation. However, you could not make it into reality. No, you can't. You exist in reality. You have a tie to reality, and I even question your humanness at this point, as far as the deep state is concerned, but you cannot do what you want to do, what the deep state wants to do in reality, because that is the kingdom of source. It's something that has never been compromised, merely overlaid, and that was it. So if they were to go there, it doesn't serve a purpose to them because they cannot extract money. They cannot extract power. They cannot overpower that kingdom owner. Absolutely not. So feverishly working on getting rid of kingdoms is what we have been up to for a while now. The deep state, however, loves their simulators, and they love to be fooled. They say, angels or fools go where angels fear to tread. Well, you would be on the fool side of the table if you are with the deep state, because you still listen to these stupid AI systems like you're going to get yourself somewhere, and you're not. You don't listen to me. You don't listen to your own quantum physicists. You don't listen to your scientists. You don't listen to anybody. You still think you're going to make it happen, but you're running on a hamster wheel, and I hope you're enjoying yourself and you wear yourself out at some point. So let's get back to how this relates to what you're seeing play out in the news. So knights, much like dragons, have multiple colored tables that they sit at. You have black knights and white knights and silver knights and purple knights and blue knights and red knights and orange knights and yellow knights and green knights. Now, this is where it all started. That doesn't mean that even though they believe they have taken over a kingdom, so to speak, at least here on Earth, that they actually really understand what that means. But they are playing a game of what we call the color wars or the kingdom wars at this point. You have the red players, which are your Trump operatives. They are playing for Team Red. You have the blue players, and the blue players are playing for example, Team Rothschild. And they are playing for the blue kingdom. Whether they know it or not, they're still playing. Black, white, purple, orange, yellow, green, and amber. Now, over the course of the last several months, the red team has believed this is why they're going and making all these political deals, implementing tariffs, trying to get countries to concede to their control, is because the red team feels that they want to advance their realm and take over other colored realms on the planet. That's what they're doing. Now, each one of these colors originally had regions that they would control. Now, if you are a knight, you weren't in control. You were supposed to be, quote unquote, security over the realm. And by security, your job was to make sure that the realm was secure, meaning controllable. And so were the citizens of that realm. That's their only job. That's all they know how to do. So yes, do they know how to conquer, have coups and all that stuff? But they really don't understand what it means to truly control a realm. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. So right now, as it relates to the humans fighting the fight over here, they believe that red has taken over blue, and, white has taken over purple, and, what we're left with is a consolidated version in their mind, in the human deep state's mind, whereby you only have 3 players left. And you have, according to what they believe, you have the White Kingdom, also called the Diamond Kingdom, whether they knew it or not. And right now, the White Kingdom is known as Russia. If you remember all the way back to the days of the Bolsheviks, you had the White Russians, and there you go. That's what you got. So you got a White Kingdom there. Now, Russia has been making their way, and if you really start looking at news, it really hasn't been about Ukraine per se. It has been in the news, and I know everybody's concerned, and there's a war, and people got hurt, and all that part's true. But it's been mainly a distraction for Russia. See, the Russians are pretty good strategists, and when my time there, when I was there, they definitely plan for the long game. It's one thing we know about Russians. So the Russians have been courting a lot of countries in Africa. They have been courting a lot of Asian countries. They have been expanding their empire bit by bit by bit for probably well over a decade and a half now. And they've been doing a pretty good job at it, actually. It doesn't matter how many sanctions, the U.S. puts on and all that kind of thing. They've expanded their empire, in the words of the human understanding of expanding the empire. Now, Russia also has a very adept SSP program, a secret space program themselves. They were also part of Project Blue Beam and other projects that we know of as United States projects. However, up until the time of the Cold War, there was a joint effort. And, I would say to this very day, there is still a joint effort to some degree. Now, you also have the Ruby Kingdom or the Red Kingdom. It's also known by many other names. There's a Falcon Kingdom, and there's a Eagle Kingdoms, and there's all kinds of different kingdoms based on who was the owner, and also known as simulations. I will repeat myself. All kingdoms are simulations except for the true one of source. So the Ruby and the Red Kingdom appears to be America. So America, and you have been watching this play out in mainstream media and behind the scenes, whereby Red are your Trump operatives. They are your Q people. Pretty much you could say, Team Red. Team Red. They're playing for Team Red. So Team Red has been working really hard at what they believe is expanding their kingdom or expanding their conquered area. I really feel like I'm playing a video game here, but unfortunately this is true. And if you read a lot of those Q posts, then you'll see they're posting the red wave is coming, the red this and the red that, and and here comes the red wave. Are you ready for red wave 3? Blah, 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 blah. They're not talking about the Republican Party here, guys. They're talking about expanding what they believe is a kingdom. Now, you also have one more player in the game. That would be the Jade. It's known as the Jade. Sometimes it's known as the Green. And currently, the base used to be in Iran for the Green Kingdom. Most recently, it appears to have moved to India. Believe it or not, don't hear much about that, do you? But it all depends on where the players in the game are and what they're looking to strategically do. You see, it was moved to India because of some interesting portals, you would say different but similar to something that is in the Himalayas, that used to be in the Himalayas. You may not know this, but one of the main non-human bases on the planet existed in the Himalayan mountains, not too far from Kashmir. Now, you've seen a lot of wars between India and China over this particular region, also Pakistan, where this actually lies, because it's deep in a very odd area of the Himalayas, let's just say, for control on the off chance that thing works again someday. and they believe it will. So that's why, you could say that India is partnered with the Iranian sector of the Jade or greens and the Chinese sector of the greens. And, this is not necessarily a country by country thing, but you could say that they've set up their home bases based on the usage of influence and at that time where they believe they can conquer additional countries. Now, you've seen a lot of BRICS meetings and talk behind the scenes about Saudi joining, Kuwait joining, Iraq joining, Iran joining, and this side and that side. And, at the BRICS meeting, they're going to come out with a new currency and all of these things based on it being some alleged special day and ending in Y and a full moon in, whatever, Aries or whatever it is. I don't know. I don't know how they calculate their cray-cray, but the simulation understood, or I would say simulations plural, they keep the humans running, and like I said, Marduke is running a program and has been running a program on them, dangling carrot after carrot after carrot, and then it never works out. So they had one of those days was this weekend. They'll have another one coming up about mid-month next month, and they'll keep chasing dragons to the end of days. But I need them to understand something. And I think you should understand something too, because if you've been feeling a little weird as all of these things have been clearing for the last couple of weeks, I mean, even starting as far back as February, even earlier, I've received reports from all over the world where people felt like their brain was separated, like they couldn't get all the sides of their brain to work together. They couldn't form thoughts. It felt like something was disrupting their brain communication with their lips and their body. And they were right for short periods of time, because as you take out a kingdom, it does affect your person. And it also affects your person deep into reality. So, remember how I said a simulation, because these are not simulations, just so you know. They use not only humans, but also Earth and our sun and our moon for a lot of different things when they're creating simulations. Humans are extremely important in creating simulations because you exist in all densities. You've been divided and split up and then split up again, horizontally and vertically in so many different ways over the years that, they had to create certain things in order to prevent us from figuring out what they were doing to us. And by them, I do not mean the deep state. The deep state causes a lot of problems, don't get me wrong, but they're never going to solve this riddle. So, we know that you have 3 main chakras in your body. I know that the internet tells you you have 12 and 18 and 24 and 9 and 7, and depending on what guru you're looking at, that's what they'll tell you. They'll tell you different stories. But the fact of the matter is, in the natural world, you have 3. In the unnatural world, those 3 are divided into yet another 3 and possibly another 3, just like they divided all of these kingdoms and simulations into many parts. You have something over those 3 main chakras. Remember, the dark can merely only overlay. That at some points in time, based on different rules of the road, and again, there's rules of the road, you had what we call kingdom stones. If you've ever watched any kind of the Marvel series, they talk about infinity stones and in different things. And I think in the series there's like 6 or 9 colors or something to those stones, and each one represents different elements and that kind of thing. And it's kind of in part there's some truth to that, because there's always a little bit of truth. But in reality, there's millions of stones, and they use those stones to overlay chakras of humans that control the mind, body, and the soul. Controlling a stone like that, and they're, of course, rooted here to Earth, because, that also controls most of the omniverse, and all simulators stem from this galaxy, and its respective overlays. But in this particular case, being a kingdom owner, I don't care if what team the deep state is playing on today or tomorrow, but being a kingdom owner, and being down to 3 kingdoms on their side, they believe, and they believe that they've managed to take over all of the other ones that we didn't mention, that are still left in the game, each one claiming different territories at this point in time. It's affecting, all of us. But to truly own a kingdom, even a simulated kingdom, which I don't think they really care if we're in a simulation or not in a simulation, but they do care about controlling said kingdom of simulation. Now, they're never going to control what is sources. It's never going to happen. You can't exist without it. You can't exist without that type of energy, essence, consciousness. You can't. As a human being, and they are humans, everything, they get up, put their pants on same way we do, and maybe they don't think the same thoughts we do, but the fact of the matter is that they are a human. And whether they know it or not, as a knight, you had, in addition to your other 10 million overlays on your 3 basic mind, body, and soul control, you had many other ones to where your simulator owners would also be able to control you as part of their kingdom. Now, having their kingdom stones overlaying your mind, body, and soul, your 3 main chakras, gives them the ability to control consciousness, emotions, and all kinds of different things. It's rooted all the way into reality when such a thing was actually permitted based on deals they made, usually with a kingdom owner in reality. So let that sink in. In reality, there are 2 kingdom owners. There is Source, and then there was the dark side of Source. And a lot of agreements were made with the dark side of Source. A lot. Which then gave them access to a certain percentage of your person and those 3 main points of control. Now, because the deal was made with a part of Source at the time, which is no longer the case, but a part of Source at the time, this gave them the ability to then insert their kingdom stones, create various simulations, use us as batteries for said simulations, and so on and so forth. So, as all of those various kingdom stones are removed, the simulations then go away, and then, well, it causes a little bit of dismay for the deep state like it did today. You see, in order for them to truly control and own a kingdom, if you do not have this tether in reality, you will never own a kingdom. You will never truly own citizens. You will never actually be able to say, we, the red people, now control planet Earth. We are now in pole position. Because there is no red. If there is no red overlay on kingdom stones after kingdom stones of 10 million kingdoms of red or ruby or garnet or whatever they called them, because there have been many, many ways to describe red. There's no kingdom. You don't have all the rights and benefits of the citizens, humans or otherwise, in a simulation. Can't happen, won't happen, never going to happen. So how do you counteract the deep state in this particular case? Well, you let them run around like chickens with their head cut off, chasing a dragon that doesn't exist. Probably puff the magic dragon for half of them or something. I'm pretty sure they're smoking something. On the other hand, this became evident over the last few days, not only because of what was happening in Silverton, it became very evident from Brooklyn, New York. Most of New York, and it's part of the reason why it's a hotbed for the financial system, it was a hotbed for a lot of things, but New York had a very large command and control center that was utilized by the global headquarters / SSP or Secret Space Program, ACIO folks. And it was probably one of the largest ones on Earth I've ever seen. Now, Earth, as you know, lives in reality. But Earth has also had many kingdom simulation owners. So we thought that, well, there's 5 owners of Earth. Well, there was, as it related to the kingdom of reality, Earth. But as it relates to simulations, you had millions of overlays. Now, in this command and control center, basically what they could see was simulations tied together by, for lack of a better term, a cord or a thread, a wormhole, a quantum tunnel. And they could see all the simulations of Earth that were going on simultaneously. Therefore, they had the ability to travel from simulation to simulation anytime they wanted to. Now, to some limited degree, they did have access to the lower astral of reality, limited degree. However, they could only exist there for a certain amount of time. So they would come and go regularly. As it relates to a reality, Earth, if they are jumping from a simulation to a simulation to a simulation, and they can only remain in a simulation for a certain amount of time before they must depart it, or they will age. They'll age rapidly. So one of the things that happened this weekend when that headquarters was no longer, let's just say, and the kingdoms or various simulations have been going away rapidly at this point, what we consider rapidly, is they would get squeezed out of simulations. Some people got stuck here. A lot of them are aging ridiculously fast. I don't know how long they're going to survive. Meaning, you know, if you were your body was 21 today, it might be 81 tomorrow. I mean, it's happening that fast. The other thing that happened was as some of them got squeezed out, because remember, you know, they have these bases that don't really exist on other planets. They just exist on other simulations. They got squeezed out of their respective locations as well, because there are actual living humans that are going back and forth, you know, between all these places. So that being said, they got squeezed out and ended up getting stuck here in this particular simulation, you know, overlay, and kind of half in reality and half out. And, you know, they didn't understand what was happening. Well, what's happening is your simulation kingdom is going away. Therefore, you get stuck. When you get stuck here, you don't belong here, you go away from here. And then you're gone from all the simulations at the same time. That's kind of how it works here. We'll see how long this will continue. But as it relates to mainstream media, this whole jockeying for Powell position. Powell's always been a blue. Blue does not want to concede to red, even though they said they have several times. This is the fight between Trump operatives and the Rothschild family, as an example. They agree to work for them, then their stuff doesn't work out. The big, beautiful bill doesn't pay out. Now blue wants to leave red and go, start on their own, some kind of control program. Blue still has a lot of influence as it relates to Commonwealth countries. Therefore, they would like to take those over. Red wants all the Commonwealth countries plus, all of the territories of UK and other regions of Europe and Israel, obviously. So now, when things don't work out the way they think they're going to work out on any given day, new moon, otherwise alignment with Uranus, then, they start fighting amongst each other and jockeying for position again. So we'll see how long we're left with red, white, and green. We'll see. But that is the fight that you're seeing happening with Powell. Powell does not work for the United States. He does not work for a government in any way. He works for a family. He is an actor in a movie. He is merely a front person. So why they're fighting for the front guy, I'm not really sure. But this all behind the scenes is all about the fight to control the blue, which they believe controls the financial sector of the planet. It's still not going to help them in any way, shape, or form, but wish you all the luck in the world, on your declining control of simulations. Next, you have Russia. Russia in the news. Allegedly, Putin is no longer willing to negotiate with the Reds or Trump operatives. They're going to be in a fight. They're going to control their own territories. Israel is bombing Syria, which has always been a Russian territory, but then the Americans tried to take it over. This is what the war is all about. It's all about territory and control of planet Earth, and this is the game that they're playing. And they believe this is going to help them control all the people, therefore be able to control the kingdom. And that couldn't be further from the case because there's a cold chance in hell of them actually being able to place a heartstone in anybody. I can tell you that right now. However, since I operate with Source, I can operate in reality all I want because I'm following the rules of the road of reality and the rules of Source. Therefore, removing heartstones is no problem for us on our side. We're doing exactly what we're told. Everybody will belong to the kingdom of Source. We take away a simulation, the heartstone goes in for Source. We take away a simulation, the heartstone goes in for Source. And what I mean by heartstones is the actual kingdom stone of Source. Mind, body, and soul. So that protects it from anybody being able to overlay it because Source is not going to make an agreement at this point in time with any ridiculous Trump operative Q people. Could care less of what they want because, quite frankly, without him, they don't exist. That's really the reality of the situation. So all the fights you're seeing in mainstream media right now are clearly all rooted in the color wars or in the kingdom wars, or at least that's what they think they're fighting for, but ain't really happening. It doesn't matter if Marduke simulator AI generated comes to Fort Bragg and tells them to do this and do that, and this is how it's going to work out. It still won't work out this way. Not in any way, shape, or form. Nope, not even a little bit. Meanwhile, he's running simulators on your head so that the deep state will continue to do this. And they buy it hook, line, and sinker every time. See, I actually knew the being, so I knew better. But, do it as you will. Fire Powell, don't fire Powell. Take over the Fed, don't take over the Fed. No one over here cares. We really do not care at all. Systems are being built for reality, and that will be, once we get through all the simulations, then reality is the way it's going to be. Take it or leave it. Deep state join, don't join, we don't care. It doesn't matter to us. On that note, this has been a lot longer of a report than I thought it was going to be. I just wanted to give you a quick reminder. We are doing our live GIA report on YouTube and Rumble and X or Twitter, whatever it's called these days, and that will be on Friday. It'll be at 6 p.m. Eastern time. We'll do the GIA report live on that day, and then from there we will go over to the app, our UnitedNetwork.Earth, to do a Q&A that we normally do on Zoom, where you'll be able to ask your questions. So I always look forward to those because I love talking to all of you, and I appreciate all of you for taking the time to join us, if it's late your time or really early if you're in Australia. So thank you so much. I look forward to talking with all of you directly. So that'll be great on Friday. So
Tired before the day begins? NAD Plus levels drop 50% after 40. NAD Plus helps your cells bounce back fast. Most supplements give precursors. NAD Plus skips the breakdown, delivering direct, bioavailable power. Support your energy, metabolism, sleep, and stress levels at the cellular level. Join the NAD Plus revolution. Start your journey to a healthier you. Subscribe today.